Jamie, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast today. And I want to introduce you. But before we even get into that, what are you reading, watching, listening to? What's captured your attention recently?
So right now, a lot of active stuff, being outside, pickleball, kayaking, being in nature. That's kind of like my jam away from the computer. But I actually last night learned about something called spiral dynamics, which I
Mm.
had never heard of. Somebody brought it up and I was like, what is that? And it is color assignments for different periods of human history and different things that cultures and societies are going through. And those colors correspond to different energies and intentions. So like red is like really strong energy of like wanting to, win and fight and all of that. And then, this color has this energy, which is, more aligned with being one with the earth. And, so there's all of these different colors and they're just kind of assigning them to different periods of energy in human history that I thought was really interesting. It was a very interesting frame to look at things aside from just the cold, hard facts of this happened and this date.
Yeah, it's giving like a broader kind of context to it. I love it. It feels like someone with synesthesia invented this theory.
Yeah, I was kind of feeling that actually that when I was looking at it, and I wish I could articulate it better, but I just started looking at it last night as a brain break in
Yeah.
between all of the things I was doing.
That sounds so cool. Do you get time to like read for fun, or is most of your reading or listening geared to your work?
Go definitely in phases with reading. I'm either reading 3 or 4 books at the same time and just
Mhm.
picking up different things and engaging with them. And then I'll go 6 months with reading almost nothing, and be in more of a creator mode
Yeah.
where I'm creating systems, I'm evaluating, I'm creating content and all of those types of things. I'm usually in one mode or the other primarily, and then I'll
Yeah.
just do very little of the other one.
Yeah. Take a break. I do that too. What is that you mentioned getting out in nature? And are there other sort of self-care things that you engage in that help boost your energy or help you feel more grounded or connected?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, everyone always says like, "You have more energy. Like, where do you get your energy from?" Because I go to all these morning events and I'm just like, "Woohoo!" And everyone's like, "How many cups of coffee did you have?" And I'm like, "0." I genuinely feel like there's so many things out there of like, use this face mask from, this line of beauty products and, eat this like crazy diet and do this and do that. And there's always fads, there's always craziness of, gimmicky things. My whole thing is very simple. Get good sleep, eat healthy, eat clean, and do things that make you happy and make you feel purposeful and joyful. Like, do I
Mm,
eat chocolate? Yes. Like, but in general, that's kind of my philosophy is just trying to
yeah.
be healthy and as zen
Yeah.
as I can be.
Sleep is the key. It's everything. Yeah. And what brings one person joy doesn't bring another person the same joy. So it is about finding your thing, you know?
Yeah, I brought up an interesting point at a networking event the other day. We were talking about life balance, and I said, life balance looks different for different people. What good life balance looks like is very individual. Somebody can have great life balance working 70 hours a week. Somebody else
Yeah,
needs to work 30. Someone else
that's
needs
right.
15 hours outside. Someone else needs two, like, or none. So it really is very personal what good life balance and mental health and
Mhm,
physical health and well-being all look
mhm,
like when they come together. And so what I would do for myself and what you would do is not what somebody listening to this podcast might
mhm.
do. And that's okay.
Well, I want to hear all about your life and this journey you've been on. But I'll start by asking you like your story of what got you interested in entrepreneurship, leadership, sort of where the space that you're in today. What started that journey for you?
Yeah, so that journey started a long time ago, but it started primarily during COVID. That was when everything shifted for me. So I had been a teacher and a professor and a consultant and a director and all of these various roles in the educational sphere for a couple decades at that point. And during COVID, everything was obviously upended. And I had had this idea in the back of my mind to create a tutoring company of my own. And it was just sort of this seed in the back of my mind that I thought I'll do this in like 5 years or 10 years. And then during COVID, when everything went cattywampus, to use my Canadian friend's word, I just decided, okay, this is the time. Let's launch this. And really, the reasoning behind it is that when you're an individual teacher or practitioner, you can reach kids and do amazing things, but you can only reach so many kids and help so many families because there is one of you. And
Mm-hmm.
so what I really wanted to do was start as a solopreneur with the intention of building up a team to really have more impact and create a culture. And that was what was important to me is if I can find like-minded people and we can do this together and create authentic, really high-level relationships with kids and families and really make a difference, we can scale this and have this amazing culture of professionals from all over the country and potentially all over the world. And we can reach a lot more people and give them really high quality, connected, relational, educational experiences that are individualized, that as one human, I can have all of these great intentions, but there's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much of me. There's only so much energy that I have. And my skill set is limited. We all have blind spots. We all have areas where we're amazing and areas that other people are much better in. And so if I create a team, I can't teach this subject, or I'm not the right fit to work with this type of neurodiverse student or that elementary school student when that's not my background. But these other amazing people are. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was really the impetus behind creating it. And I love leadership. So that was always something that I had done in small doses, but I really was very motivated to go out and take a risk on creating something that was completely my own and developing it and fine tuning it with these people along the way as a team. And so that process has been really satisfying. And I feel like the degree that I made up at Harvard, leadership and organizations, 15, 20 years ago at this point, when I was trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do? Like, how do I want to do this? And I just made up a degree and wrote it up. And I was like, hey, I want to do this. And they approved it. It was laying a foundation for something that I
Mm-hmm.
would do 15 years later and had no inclination that I would do that. So everything kind of comes around and works for the
Yeah.
good. And I find that process really cool.
It's so cool that you planted seeds like a decade and a half ago, and then really started to see that bloom COVID time. Even but like you said, you weren't like cognizant of it, but it sounds like you were paying attention to like yourself and the right moment to really launch Jamie the Scholar. That's your tutoring company. When we spoke earlier, though, you mentioned that you've also founded a second company. Is that the one you would say is like more focused on the leadership skills that you've developed?
I think it's both. I have taken myself in the last 2 years, especially in the tutoring company, out of a lot of the day-to-day teaching and minutia, I guess you would say. And we've developed a lot of internal teams, which has taken a lot of strategic planning and a lot of leadership. And we now have a team of 30 plus tutors, which is really exciting. We have all these teams within our company, so I'm leading all of those and helping them to lead each other, which is great. So I feel like that piece of Jamie the Scholar continues to
Mm,
evolve and use different leadership skills and developing culture and developing other people's leadership, which is really
mm,
rewarding and exciting. Um, and then the new company is using leadership skills, but also entrepreneurial skills. It's
mm,
everything that I've learned in this journey of, okay, I'm a teacher and I have these kids in front of me. And I have to develop curriculum and motivate them and get them excited and keep them to a high standard, all of your essential teacher skills, right? When I became an entrepreneur and created Jamie the Scholar, that's a totally different skill set, being an entrepreneur. I had none of those skills, that I had actually used in everyday life at any point.
Mm,
So I
hmm
had to develop an entirely new skill set of networking and strategic planning and all of these things that I had not really done in that way before, just in a small microsphere. And so
mm,
I think that the excitement and the passion for me of creating the second company, speaking to entrepreneurs, owners, working groups, whatever the case may be, is I can help them in their journeys. So whether they're starting out, they've been doing things for 5 years, 20 years, 40 years, there are things that I have learned and become expert in over this journey of creating this company and everything that was involved with it. And I love helping people be able to do those things. There are
mm,
things that I'm not expert at. There are many, many things that I go to other people for and I say, hey, this is not my jam, like, help me do this. But
mm,
there are other areas where I feel like I've really gained a lot and been able to have very fruitful talks with business owners at all different levels of their business, whether they were going through change dynamics, changing leadership, transforming, rebranding, stuck,
yeah.
stagnant, whatever, and really really see that I can help them. And so this just gives me a bigger platform to be able to do that and help more people, which is always like something I really feel valuable doing. And a lot of times with educational leadership, people think just that means principal and superintendent. And there's in a lot of places, that's what they're training you for when they say educational leadership. That is what that program is. And there's a lot of ways to be in leadership in education in many types of
Yeah.
organizations that are aside from principal superintendent.
Yeah. And you mentioned too, like the building of culture is such an integral part of leadership and
Mhm.
such an integral part of like your goals when you founded Jamie the Scholar and maybe with your new venture. It's called Get Smart. What is it?
The
What do you
Get Smart speaker.
that
Yes.
gets perfect. Yeah, that's it isn't like, something that I normally associate with leadership, but as soon as you brought that up, I was like, of course, that is where the the culture comes from is
Hmm.
the top. That's a huge part of that responsibility and probably makes or breaks many companies. I am always interested in like the nonlinear aspects of the way that people grow because I think the linear is like a very truncated storyline. But I'm
Hmm.
really curious, like, what major detours showed up for you when, if we go back to the COVID time and you were starting Jamie the Scholar, what were some of the unexpected detours or nonlinear things that happened?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of them. I think the biggest one is so I started in August of 2020. Started like I said as a solopreneur, was learning all of the entrepreneurial skills, started networking, all of the things you need to launch a business, figuring all of those things out. Actually started figuring them out and then started building a small team. We were doing okay. Like for a year into a business, like we were doing pretty okay. And then all of a sudden, in September of 2021, I got extremely ill very quickly. Long story short, I got diagnosed with aggressive cancer. And so it was like a massive halt. I was bedridden and fighting for my life for 5 months. And thank God, still here, have hair. Life is good. 4 years in remission. Woohoo.
Woohoo!
But that, I mean, everything just kind of stopped because I was unable to even like take care of myself, let alone run a company. So we stopped. And when I got well, a couple months after, I got my strength back and all of that, we started up again. And
Mm,
everybody stayed that had been a part of it for 6 months or, before everything fell apart. which was really heartwarming, that we were able to build that culture and everybody wanted to come back. So that was really cool. And then we just started over again and
Yeah.
built everything back up and kept adding to our team and adding to our culture and creating new things and doing new things together. So I say that would be probably the most heartbreaking and intense
Yeah.
stumbling block that I had, but there were definitely others. We tried to do this whole like summer program thing, and that did not work. I
Hmm.
was all excited about it. We put a lot of time, money, and energy into it, and it just was like not, it just didn't take. So there were definitely, there are missteps and things that happen unexpectedly, and you just have to roll with it. And I think, people, to your point of journeys not being linear, people tend to talk about their success story and everything that they did to get where they are that worked. And they're more reticent to talk about the things where they failed, where they had bad judgment, where they lost money, where they lost opportunity. Um, they made a bad hire, whatever the case is. And it's important that we're able to talk about those things because otherwise it's not real. You can't acknowledge where you've been, you can't reflect on it and figure out what to do in the future because things come back around. And if you
Hmm.
don't manage them and you just shove them under the rug and act like everything's great, that situation will come back up again. So it's just
Yeah.
dealing with things head on, in my opinion, and learning how to manage things and move through things that you don't know how to move through because no business owner starts a business and knows how to manage and move through everything. I don't care how many years of school you had. I don't care what you've done in your past. There are always situations, people, things, events that will come up that will affect your life, affect your business, affect your
Yeah.
finances, affect your reputation, and you have to manage them when they come up.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like learning in general, the really comes from the missteps and less from the successes because you're not always
Hmm.
sure how successes happen. There's luck involved too with things, but where you made mistakes, that feels very actionable,
Right.
where you can actually really apply that and make those adjustments and learn and grow. I was actually wanting to ask you next about your perspective on learning and growth and how that's changed over the span of your career. And I know that that's a massive sort of question.
Yeah.
But if there's like a part of that that you would want to speak to about like insights you've had about the way people learn
Mhm.
and how you've really incorporated those insights into the work that you do.
I think the most important insight that I had about learning is that learning happens best in some kind of relational aspect. And when you're in school, they teach you about different learning styles. When you're becoming a teacher, they teach you about attention span. They teach you about, neurodiversity and students that have, special needs and need this. And this is what strategy you use here and how to make a lesson plan and all of that. But all of those pieces are important to creating meaningful learning. But unless somebody has a connection with you and you know that that person cares about you as a human being, sees you, adjusts for you, you have a good give and take, there's trust, that's when you can really skyrocket. Anybody
Mm,
can look anything up on AI and find out factual information or create a flyer or, a million different things that AI can do and find information about anything ever. All you have to do is speak into it and ask it something. Learning and really learning and growing as a person, understanding yourself and how you learn and what you need and how to
mm,
optimize your own brain and the way that you move through life and academics and work successfully. That is a different level of skill. And that is what Jamie the Scholar is built on. And
mm,
that's what I'm trying to do with the Get Smart speaker as well. It's not
mm,
about procedure, it is about a deeper dive into connection and understanding yourself. And that's where real learning takes place. And that is what Jamie the Scholar's foundation is and why it's set up the way that it is. Because in my past, I saw that many educational experiences were so transactional. It was like, oh, well, I need to learn these math equations or I need to get this paper done by 5 o'clock. And those things sometimes need to happen, but it's such a lesser quality of learning and education than having a relationship with someone that is a good fit for you, that is invested in you, that consistently works with you, that cares about you, understands how you learn, and can develop things for you that will help you with whatever tasks you need to do, but also elevate your own metacognition so that you can be independent and grow as a person. That's the ultimate goal of education. And there is not enough of that happens on a daily basis in public school in the United States and many other countries as well. Like a lot of other countries have great education systems. There are parts of the US education system that are great and parts that are not so great. I could go on about that for a really long time, but I won't. But in general, that is really what I
Yeah.
feel is the most important piece of growth and learning is feeling safe to grow, feeling respected, feeling seen, and having someone that actually can calibrate what you're doing so that you can learn and grow from that experience and do that for yourself.
Yeah. I was just going to say it's like the empowerment path, not the mirror, like repeat exactly what I did, because that is not the learning, but it's often the demand. But you're
Right.
working within that system to help empower individuals. And metacognition is the creme de la creme of all human skills, right? But I couldn't agree with you more though about the human connection and in what you described too, what I heard was a philosophy of like human variability exists.
hmm
What's your flavor? And how does that work in the world? And empowering individuals to shine in that space rather than trying to conform into something that doesn't match them or help them to feel validated as just a human being. I mean, there is something so mechanical about the education system, and that is cross-cultural. That really is not limited
Yeah.
to
No,
us here.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
that's why I don't just talk with the parents, I talk with every student as well before they start and get to know them. And I want to know their strengths, their hobbies. What do they enjoy doing?
Hmm.
How do they learn best? What's their attention span? What type of teacher do they work well with? So I
Hmm.
can create a whole profile for every student that comes in, match
Yeah.
them with their teacher, and then that teacher gets that profile and they know a lot about that student before they even reach out to the parent. And they're armed with information of, oh, this student needs a break after 30 minutes. They need to use a fidget. They, have XYZ neurodiversity. When they start looking to the right, that's what this means. And you should do this. So all of those things just empower teachers to better serve and better
Yeah.
connect, which is what every teacher's ultimate goal should be. If we're just there on a Zoom call or in person or in front of a classroom or a lecture hall to disseminate information, we can get a robot to do that. We can get AI to do that. But that's not the main purpose. The main purpose is to excite and inspire and motivate and connect. Using all of that, then disseminate information that someone
Into
actually needs and cares about and wants to use.
Yeah, that's like relevant to them and they're receptive to it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't remember what the quote is. Like you can't hand someone a tool with a closed fist. Um concept, right? So
hmm
part of building personal connection too is the opening of the individual as they're acknowledged and felt respected. Helps any one of us that are treated in that way are going to open up more in that
Yeah.
space. And then that allows us to take in more information, especially new or hard information. I think that's so beautiful. What relationships in your life or communities that you've been part of help to really shape this perspective that you have on learning and growth?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. And I think it is honestly not from what I experienced, but from what I didn't experience, what I wished I had experienced when
Yeah.
I was a student, when I was teaching in schools, all the times where I had great creative ideas and the administration said, no, we don't do it this way. Or,
Hmm.
we don't have funding for this, or we can't do that because this is what we do instead. And so it was, how do we create really quality relationships and educational experiences and community, whether that community is two people on a Zoom call that are connecting multiple times a week or once a week or whatever the case may be, or we're doing it in our own community of teachers and having community amongst ourselves, which we do. And that's what I wanted to create. I wanted to create a community of, I have never had this. I have never walked into a teacher's lounge, or I have never had this on day one at the beginning of the school year. How do I create what I never experienced in the workplace, and what a lot of
Yeah.
teachers and educators and professors and just people in general in their jobs don't experience. So I just sat down with a legal pad before I started this company, in my dining room with construction going on above my head and all the craziness before I moved, wrote down what are the most five essential things that I think a really great community that people want to be a part of. What is that based on? What would I want that I don't
Yeah.
have? What do I hear people talk about at all the jobs that I've been at? I wish that the boss did this. I wish that this was true. I can't stand how this happens. And so I just wrote down this most simple things that you can think of, and I created a community based off of that. And it's very simple, streamlined pieces of human nature. And that's what I created a community off of. And that's what we do. Whatever that community is, whether I bring that in leadership in a networking community, or an audience when I'm speaking, or
Mm.
the team that, my teaching team that we all work together to serve students in Jamie the Scholar, and we want to learn and grow together. It's really those four or five things that I have in my mind all the time of
Yeah.
what would I want, and if I and all the things from my past experiences. So created a I created the communities that I wanted that I didn't ever find.
I love that. That's really powerful. I'm curious what those foundations are. Do you want to speak on those? Do you want to share them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. So one was giving people the opportunity to create their own parameters. So, it's very frustrating when you feel like you don't have a voice at your job. You can't say like, I want to do things this way, or I want to work with this type of person or on this type of project. And, certain jobs will lend themselves to that more than others, obviously, but this is a part-time job for people. They're full-time teachers, professors, retired engineers doing their day job, whatever the case may be. So everybody gets to say how many hours they want to work. They choose their own schedule. They're only working in their areas of expertise and true
Hmm.
passion. They are given opportunities to join different teams at Jamie the Scholar. You can join no teams. You can be on 7 teams. We have like 14 different teams. So I send out surveys and what do you want to be a part of? And then we have an informational meeting. Okay, do you still want to be a part of this? Here's what's required. And then we form teams based on that. So it's what people are passionate about and what they want to be involved in. And I think you get so much more passion and richness and excitement when you can really be a part of something that you chose to be a part of. It's not assigned. And so I think that autonomy, within obviously what the corporation organization needs
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah.
Another thing is having, that feedback from people. So often leaders just lead and they don't reflect on their own leadership. They
Yeah.
don't give anyone a voice to comment about how things are going, what people need if things aren't working, what ideas people have. So every time I do a video observation. Afterwards, I talk to my teachers and we talk about their lesson and how it went. But we also talk in general about How are things going at the company? Do you have any great ideas that you've come up with that you think, we could benefit from? Is there anything that I can do better to make this a better experience for you? Do you need something that you're not getting? Just checking in. I also do surveys every 6 months for all of my employees that are anonymous. And I ask them about every aspect, financial compensation,
Mm,
freedom, schedule, my own leadership, their
hmm.
peers. And then I put the results up in our team meetings. We have team meetings every couple months and we talk about it. And if there are things that we need to address, I'll say, okay, here's how the survey came out. These are the areas that we feel we're doing great in. Here are the couple things that people are really pointing out where we need some growth or some support or
Hmm.
whatever the case may be. And I think knowing that your voice is valued and that you are helping to create a culture is much more powerful than here's the culture, fall in line, do what you're told, and if you don't, you're fired. Like, that's a
Hmm.
very negative, fear-based environment versus an environment of growth and working together to create a common goal and a common culture.
Yeah, yeah. The top-down sort of hierarchical approach versus more roundtable is how I think of that. What you're describing to me is in many ways like the antithesis of a patriarchal system that is so fragile and brittle because it cannot handle feedback. So that's why it doesn't seek any.
Correct. And a lot of systems don't seek feedback. And if they do, they skew the questions to only get feedback on what they know they're doing well and not on areas that people are actually
Right.
concerned about.
And I think that speaks actually to a fragile system versus what you're describing as one that's inherently like strengthened by the feedback. So it isn't just like asking for feedback, it's actually reflecting on it and analyzing it and being thoughtful about the questions and not just seeking a pat on the back for yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah. So I was just, I was a part of so many different organizations, public, private, different levels. And it was all, it was always very do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. And there wasn't any room for anybody to give feedback unless you had been there for multiple years, you had a title, blah, blah, blah. And I don't believe in that. You can have somebody that's worked at your company for a month and they can have an amazing insight. You can have people that work for your company for 8 years and they might be a great employee and their brain doesn't have that strategic planning thing and they don't have that thing to say or that great idea. So ideas can come from anyone at your company at any given point. And so why would you deny that opportunity for growth and learning
yeah.
and something that could be great, whether it's then or something to think about for down the line?
I want to ask you about like if there were, I mean, COVID, the way you described that sounded like a pivotal moment for you, but are there, since that point, other pivotal moments you can speak to that fundamentally shifted your thinking or transformed your understanding? Anything that comes to mind that strikes you as like a real turning point?
Yeah, I think as far as like my own leadership and business piece of things, I think I hit a turning point in early 2024. Company had kind of been rolling along pretty well for 3 years. We hit a big growth phase, and I said to myself, okay, if I continue to do all of these things every day, we can't reach more families. We're not going to be able to grow because
Mm,
there's only so much capacity that I have in all of these things that I'm doing. So creating over the last from mid 2024 to early 2026, we spent a year and a half transitioning everything and creating teams for everything. I used to do, when we had to hire, I would do 45 interviews by myself. I would do, you know, 34 first round interviews and then 9 second round interviews. And I would, now we have an interview team that does all the first
hmm.
interviews. And then, they meet and talk and give me the second interviews. And we have a team that works with every single system and aspect of what everyone is doing and gives feedback and data. So it's that piece of it was really exciting for me, I guess, to slowly take myself out of all of those day-to-day things and empower everyone on my team to do
Yeah.
the things that they're good at. So if you're great with technology, awesome. Be on our blog team, work on our CRM, like sweet,
Hmm.
like we love it. You're great with this, you're great with talking to people and really giving our company a good name, like we'd love for you to be on our interview team.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so I think that was a really big and exciting transitional period for the company. And now that we've gone through it and I'm looking back at it and I'm seeing all of those teams function in such a high collaborative, connected way and produce such amazing results, 10 times better than what I was producing when my energy was fractured in 27 different places.
Right.
It's very rewarding to see that, and it allows me to keep forming relationships and connections with other organizations and other networks of people and new clients and families. And that time would have been taken up by doing those tasks and not being able to do them at the level that I see my teams doing them at because they're
Yeah.
focused on those specific things. And so that's
Yeah.
been great for me to see them growing in their leadership and their skill set and their ability to collaborate with their fellow team members. But it's also helped me grow in new ways and allowed me to create this second entrepreneurial venture, which I never would have had
Yeah.
time to even think about.
If you were busy interviewing 45 people in a week or yeah. That's so cool. I love asking people about moments where they were uncertain because they didn't know if something they did was going to work out or not. And I'm curious, like, how you navigate those moments. I'm sure you've experienced those moments of like, is this going to work? I'm really rolling the dice on this and not knowing for sure that something, the effort you put in is going to work out. What do you tell yourself or what strategies do you use in those moments?
Yeah, I think the important thing is knowing where your strengths are and maximizing them, and also knowing where you are not good, period. I personally am horrible with technology. Like, I can come up with what a flyer should look like in my brain or how I want my website to look, and I can explain that to someone else, but to go in and write code or do like, I'm not good at that. I hire people out to do those things. Some things that other people don't like doing, like invoicing and payroll and budgets, I love that stuff. Someone
Mhm.
else is going to be like, I am horrible with numbers. I don't want to look at this. No, thank you. I need to hire myself, somebody to manage my finances, because I don't want to deal with that. So I think it is for me, as someone that is very neurodiverse and very quirky and unique, develop all my own ways of doing my own things. And I know where my strengths are, and I
Yeah.
ask for help in the areas where I know that I'm not strong and I'm easily frustrated, and I know where those areas are. Um, like I am very good at communication. I'm very good at strategic planning, and leadership. That's my happy place. I am
Mhm.
not good with tech or social media or anything computery. It's just not my thing. And so I learn, I do what I need to do and the skills that I need to acquire as I go. But some
Yeah.
of those things I'm not good at. And there are many other areas as well where things come up and I say, okay, somebody on my team is going to be better at doing this than I am. Somebody that I partner with is going to know the answer to this because they've been through it and I haven't. Someone else is going to be able to give me this nugget or guide me towards this resource that's going to help me, and vice versa. People are going to come to me when they need help with networking and leadership and entrepreneurship and creating a culture because those are things that I'm expert in. So it's for me, it is what am I good at and what can I maximize and what do I suck at and
Mhm.
or I don't want to do, and asking for help and paying people to do the things that you're not good at, that drain your energy, that frustrate you, and that are you're not going to get results in the same way or the quality that somebody else could get because that is their wheelhouse.
Mhm. That's energy accounting.
It is. it is energy accounting, which I just learned from you today what that is. So
Well, I
thank
mean,
you for that.
it's such a broad umbrella, so you do already know about this stuff. But like in the broader strokes, there's the day-to-day energy accounting, but then that's the like bigger picture energy accounting of like, where do I want to put my skills and my strengths? And where do I want to compensate or just not deal with this at all and have someone else sort of deal with that? And it really speaks to, I think, as human beings, we are interconnected. We work better together. Neurodiverse spaces rock because there's a variability in strengths and challenges or just preferences and dislikes. Those all count too. Yeah. And I think it's such a beautiful thing that you have sort of organized your life so that you are just able to lean into your strengths and develop those even further. And yeah, pick and choose. What do you want to learn to get stronger at? And when you're like, no, thanks, I don't need to spend time there. I want to put my energy here. This is
Yeah.
what's going to be more effective.
And
Yeah.
it's for me, it's about maximizing my day. I know that I'm bad in the afternoon usually. Like I'm not as on point between 2 and 4 as I
Yeah.
am the rest of the day. So I'm not going to schedule a bunch of stuff between 2 and 4 if I can help it because it's not my best time of day. I'm going to try to do stuff in the morning. I'm going to try to do stuff at night and just all the quirky things that I do as I can
Yeah.
do that working from home and being in my own space and my own environment, which is what I'm allowing all of my teachers to do virtually is what room in your house do you want to work in? What hours of the day are good for you to work? You can wear your comfy pants and have your favorite beverage, next to you, whether that's tea or coffee or latte, and just making it your own.
Yeah, yeah. And that's if we look at like the natural world, right? That's like going with the current instead of constantly fighting it all the time, which we do need to fight it sometimes. We do need the struggle too. But in the grand scheme of things, moving more in the flow of our own energy and strengths is, I don't know, just seems like it would lead to more happiness and more effectiveness in the world, you know?
I
God,
wholeheartedly agree.
yeah. I'm curious about like how you have integrated your academic knowledge with your lived experience and how much they've aligned with each other or diverged from each other.
I like that question. I feel like academic knowledge is really great and really useful, but only up until a point because really academic knowledge is only powerful when you really understand yourself and you're
Mm,
really in a purposeful place with the right people in the right situation.
mhm.
So you can have all of the knowledge in the world, which I definitely don't, but there are things that I know fairly well, but academics get you only to, if you're on like a mile run, it gets you maybe a quarter mile. And
Yeah,
then you're out of steam, standing on the side of the road, hunched over, sweating, saying like, I hate my life. But I feel like the integration of being in the right situation for what it is that you know and being able to experience that in a meaningful way, whether you are teaching, whether you are working on a team, creating something, part of an organization, it is that purpose and the right setting that allows you the joy of using and or sharing that academic
yeah,
knowledge. And so that for me is kind of the intersection. And I feel like that's where a lot of people are unhappy in their careers because they have some sort of academic knowledge. I'm an expert in accounting or I did business law or whatever, but it doesn't align with what they feel their purpose is. It doesn't align with their passion or their joy in what that job actually looks like on a day-to-day basis.
hmm,
And so for me, it's the alignment of the two, of the passion and the situation
yeah,
with whatever it is that that really makes people want to go to work, love their job, be excited, be fired up, and be like, yes, I cannot
hmm,
wait to get to work today. I can't wait to work on this project or
hmm,
collaborate with this person or create this new thing. Um, that's where that comes from me. It's that flow state, and that flow state is not created by academic knowledge ever
Alone. Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. 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 There's some words I've been writing down as you're speaking, and I realized it's like a checklist of what motivates human beings, right? Like autonomy and purpose and value. And like you're speaking to like that deeper motivation that isn't just like paying the bills or
Mhm.
feeling like you're a functioning member of society or whatever sort of like more academically related things that we talk about with careers. And this is that day to day, but also that bigger picture of like, this matches what I care about, you know?
Right.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, I work 70,
everything.
80 hours a week, and I've been doing that for 5+ years,
Mhm.
and I've never been happier. Like,
Yeah.
that works for me because I wake up every day very jazzed to do everything that I'm doing because I created it and I love being in it. And if I didn't love it, I would change it or I would stop doing it. I've worked at other jobs where 35 hours a week seems like the biggest slog you could ever imagine. And I feel like we've all had those jobs where you wake up in the morning and your eyes aren't even open yet and you're already thinking about how much your day is going to blow and how much
Or
you
how
can
you can
work
get out
for
of
it.
it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
all the excuses you could come up with, and which one is the most plausible, and how many days you've already missed that year, and how many vacation days you have. And it's like you haven't even had coffee yet, or even like brush your teeth, and you're already like in that mode of my life sucks. And we've all had
Yeah.
jobs like that, and we've all had
Yeah.
situations like that. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's not the number of hours you work, it's what you're doing. And if you find purpose and joy
Yeah.
and freedom in doing it.
Yeah, the quality of those hours, it's so true. And sometimes we do need to have those sucky jobs so we know what we don't
Mhm.
want.
All the sucky jobs teach you things. They
Yeah,
teach you about bad
yeah.
management, bad systems, not having autonomy and freedom, feeling
Mhm.
trapped, feeling devalued or undervalued.
Yeah,
So, you learn
yeah,
from them.
you do. So I wanted to ask in particular, like really energizes you and just feeds your soul.
I feel like the things that feed my soul are creating. Creating feeds my soul. So I love creating new systems. I love looking at things and saying, okay, what do we need to do to be better at this? What could we do to improve this?
Hmm.
How can I create something that is going to reach people, excite people, motivate people, help people? That really fires me up a lot. And so that's one thing. The other thing I feel is really helping other people grow in the ways that are meaningful to them. So whether that's my team or the parents that I'm working with, the students that we work with, people I network with, other business owners, how do you want to grow? Because it isn't about me. You can use me as a resource to help move yourself and propel yourself to the next level, but it's not
Hmm.
about me. It's about what is it that you really want? What is it that you're really seeking? And how can I help you get to the next level? And watching that transformation and growth in leadership, in accountability, in entrepreneurship, in so many aspects of being a professional, and just being a human being, that I love.
Is that another case of you building something that you wish you had, or were there people in your younger years as a learner that modeled that for you?
Again, building something I wish I had some like amazing, impactful story to tell you about this one teacher that like turned it around and made everything amazing for me. And in fact, it is very opposite of that. And I had very scarring, detrimental, traumatic experiences at school. And so it was the opposite of what I wanted. And I feel like, especially in the world that we're living in now, it's very critical in nature. It's very pouncy with negative comments, whether people are bashing each other online or watching something, talking about politics. whatever it is, people are very willing to tear things down. And that is a cultural norm that I feel is hopefully moving in a better direction as we go through time and kind of heal as a culture from a lot of things that have gone on and a lot of divisions and othering and all of that. But I like to focus on positivity and building people up and helping people grow. And a lot of people think like, oh, that's like all pie in the sky. And, you're just saying nice things to people. No, I'm not. I'm being authentic. I'm giving people honest praise of things that they're doing well. And I'm letting people know in very respectful
Hmm.
ways with constructive criticism, like, hey, have you thought about this?
Hmm.
What did you think when this happened? How would you handle that differently if the situation happened again?
Yeah.
Is there another way we can look at this?
Like
I
growth oriented. Yeah.
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 So there's a very intense cultural gravitation towards being critical of other people and systems and things that people build because people are not building their own things. They're just kind of tearing and critical of other people's stuff. And so I like reframing that
Yeah.
and getting people to really think about, okay, let's stop talking about everything that's not working and why this person is doing this and this person is doing that. What can you change?
That's
What can
right.
you focus on? Because no growth happens by gaslighting somebody else. It happens by managing things that you can control and moving through life with that mindset.
Yeah. Because I'm hearing what you're saying, and there's two thoughts that come to mind. One is more brain based, which is what you're describing too, is regulatory for the brain. Because if there's just a bunch of really scary things happening and your limbic system is freaking out, continuing to focus on what's broken, what's not working does absolutely nothing to change that. But focusing on like what's actually within my control that I can take action on is actually really going to soothe that system so it can operate more effectively. The other image I had in my mind was I was imagining like, in preschool and kids are like playing with blocks and
Mhm.
there's that kid who's got like their tongue stuck out the side of their mouth and they're really focused and they're building these blocks and they've spent like 10 minutes building it. It takes like work and effort and motivation, but it only takes half of a second for a kid to come and smash it all down. It's so much easier to destroy than to build in many ways. And to what
And
you're
that's
describing.
why
Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's why
Yeah,
people gravitate towards it because it takes a lot less mental energy, to your point,
yeah,
to criticize and
that's
kind of
easy.
use that
Yeah,
as almost false empowerment of
yep,
and then to actually create something which is has a level of vulnerability to it, but it's a difference between a passive victim mindset, a victim of circumstance
yep,
versus somebody that has some control over their life, their actions, their environment. No one ever has full control over anything because that's not life. Life happens every day and we manage things we don't expect,
yep,
well, not well, but it's just that mindset of being a passive person that is just letting life happen to them versus making choices.
yep. Doing executive functioning. Yeah. Yeah. And stepping into that space. So much of what you've shared today really does lead to like individual empowerment and being in more of the driver's seat of their own life, which is, I don't know, maybe the goal brain wise. It's definitely a big part of higher functioning brain processes. So looking to your future and you can kind of think as far out. It could be like end of this week, end of this year, end of 5 years from now. But what is like really intriguing you and like what questions are you grappling with? Where do you think your attention's going to be?
Yeah, so my ultimate goal is to be a part of the national reframing of public education. I feel like the system has progressively imploded over the last 40 to 50 years. We see it in the lack of satisfaction with school from kids, from parents, the test scores, national, state, obviously fairly abysmal for the amount of money that we spend per student on education. And so there's a lot of things that don't work. And I would really like to be part of that national conversation in 5, 10, 15 years, whenever the timing is right. I would like to be at a place where I have enough clout to be in that national conversation and help really create what education looks like for the next generation. How do we make education actually serve the workforce? How do we make education serve the students the way that they are now in the society that we live in, which is very, very different from what things look like 50 years ago, even 10 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, even 5 years ago. The
Mm,
skill set that people need is changing all the time. And there's a lot of massive holes in the skill set, and the
yeah.
academic foundation does not match the world that students are finding when they graduate, whatever that graduation is, whether it's high school, college, advanced degrees. They're not matching up, and we're not properly preparing people for what they need to be successful members of society and function in workspaces and get the jobs that they are best suited for. We don't have a good system.
No.
There are certain school districts, people, families that learn how to navigate it and can make it work. But overall, we do not have a very good system for that. And there's a lot of resentment, there's a lot of dread in finding a job, keeping a job, the mismatch of culture with what people expect. So I would really like to be a part of that conversation when the time is right.
I would love to see you leading that conversation. I just couldn't agree with you more about the stark, obvious, glaring mismatch between the skills that we are helping people develop versus the skills that are needed actually in the world.
Mhm.
It feels like big and overwhelming, but to something mentioned earlier of like, what's that like? Focus on the things you can change.
Right,
I think about the circles of control and influence and like keep it close. Keep it close. Like, what can I do? What is that
right.
like that piece of it? It's really exciting though. And yeah, it's really exciting to think about how we can transform it. I want to ask you one last question, which is imagining that there's someone listening to this podcast today who is in the education sphere and like really connecting to some of the pieces you've spoken to about entrepreneurship and leadership. What advice would you give to someone starting their own journey into this world based on what you've learned in your experiences?
I think the most important advice I could give them is create what you know is quality. There's always going to be tech fads and teaching fads and curriculum fads. And, I learned this and I had this class in my master's degree, and they're saying I need to do this. And, none of those things are bad, but create the quality for the situation that you're in and the population that you're serving,
Yeah.
and that will never steer you wrong, because the other stuff is ancillary. The systems that you use, the cost of X, Y, and Z, like all of those things are just serving, really creating a quality product or service that you are passionate for and see a need in the world for. And so if you stick true to that, everything else will fall behind that.
Mm, that's such good advice. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie. It's been
It's a
so
pleasure to be on.
it's so delightful to chat with you. And just to hear your passion for the work you're doing and the quality of work that you're creating. I think you walk the talk and talk the walk, and like, it's really comes across as like powerful, authentic work that's changing lives. Thank you so much for coming on.
It was a pleasure to be on with you and talk with you as always.
If you've enjoyed today's discussion, I invite you to share this episode and subscribe to Able Pathways podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us to share these meaningful conversations with more people. Have thoughts about this episode or suggestions for future guests? We would love to hear from you. Leave us a comment or email us at hello@ablepathways.com. Until next time, I'm Annabelle, reminding you that there are infinite pathways to growth. May you travel yours with curiosity and courage.